Through our journey and through the documentary of Mallory's Army, what I really wanted to do was continue this voice and continue to showcase other people's stories. Because I think that one of the biggest obstacles that we have is that people feel sorry for you for a few months. You know, they feel sorry, but then they expect you to move on, and what they don't understand is that you never move on. So I wanted to use my life to showcase other people's stories and the things that happen to them, but also what they're doing. They're taking on challenges that I didn't know needed to be taken on, and now that I'm living it, I go, oh, now I can get it. So I want to first of all thank you for inviting, our foundation and our organization into your home and sharing your family with us. So I sincerely appreciate that. My favorite thing is when people ask me about Mallory and they say, "Tell me about Mallory."
Yes.
Tell me about Austyn.
Okay.
Like, talk about when he was little.
My name is Austyn.
Younger Austyn
Yeah.
was very free-spirited.
Yeah.
He would have the confidence to just go in and go play with somebody. He would have the confidence to just dance and be free and go outside, and very loving. He's always been my loving child who, first thing in the morning, he's at my bedroom door, give me a hug, or if my husband's not in bed and he's at work, Austyn will climb into bed with me and just snuggle. Yeah. There was actually one incident where we had a 100th centennial event, and my good friend Anthony was running the entire thing. And at the same time of them setting up for the event the next day, Austyn had gone up to him and was like, "Mr. Scardino, is there anything I can help with you?" And not many kids will leave their friends at the park to go over and help an adult. And Austyn was happier than ever just to help. He loves doing things for others.
So very sacrificial.
Yes.
So would you say that Austyn is sensitive?
I would say he is overly sensitive.
Okay.
And especially now, after dealing with the bullying.
Did you see signs of him being sensitive before?
I did.
I bring that up because sensitivity is the #1 characteristic for children who self-harm. And the reason why we do the Parent Project is parents that are watching, if they can start seeing similarities in their own children with Mallory and with Austyn and other children, are those warning signs or things for them to look out for. So would you say that you saw that Austyn was very sensitive?
I did.
Okay.
I saw that he was very sensitive, and in fact he was self-harming. At first it was kind of just noticing.
And what
small
age was
things.
this?
3rd going into 4th.
So I want to talk about this because oftentimes in my Mallory's Army parent seminars that we do, I get asked, when do you start to see the changes, or when should we look out for that, or where are the warning signs? And so oftentimes in preschool, it's my mommy said.
Right.
Preschool teachers will say, everything that they say, well, my mommy says I don't have to take a nap, or my mommy says I don't have to eat my vegetables.
Right.
And then of course in kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, it's my teacher said, right? The kids come home with this homework and they're like, my teacher says it has to be done this way.
Right. Yes.
And usually in 3rd grade, it's my friends say. And once the friends have a say-so, there's this shift that happens in children where parents, teachers, figures of respect and authority are no longer as relevant as they used to be. And that's usually around 3rd or 4th grade where it's my friends say. That's usually when their clothes start to change.
Right.
Their personalities start to change. I even see things like food interests will change because their friends at school don't like it. So when did you start to see things for Austyn start to change?
So our town runs a little bit different than normal towns. We have schools that are K through 2nd. We have 3 of those schools. Then there's one building where all those schools combine for one big 3rd grade building because that's when they start their testing. Austyn was lucky and had a phenomenal teacher. He had a good group of friends. They would try and keep their elementary school friends in the same classes, and he did everything from baseball, basketball, to soccer, to any sport imaginable because I wanted him to experience everything.
Perfect. Yep.
So he knew a lot of the kids in town, and I was very involved in the town. I was on the PTA, 2 years as the PTA president, then turned to vice president. I was on the board for soccer for many years. Everybody knew me and would come to me with questions. From there, they would also know my children, and our children would get together and become friendly. So going into 3rd grade, he knew a lot more kids from town
So he did good
than
foundation.
others did. Yes. From the 3rd grade, we have our middle school building, and the middle school is 4 through 8.
So he started middle school in 4th grade.
Yes, and
essentially.
that's when everything started to happen. He would come home and sometimes tell me things. He would come home where naturally I would be like, how's school today? And he would tell me stories about how school was. And 4th grade, he would come home and say, it was okay, and go in his room. He wouldn't really have friends over. He's afraid of no's. He's afraid of being turned down.
And that's part of that sensitivity characteristic.
Yes.
Yeah. They're people pleasers.
Right.
Right.
So I would say to him, Austyn, you know what? Invite anybody over. I don't care if we have 20 kids in the house. And for his birthday that year, he saw that everybody he invited showed up for him.
Okay, so that was a good...
Yes, that was a positive thing for him to see. And then he started kind of sticking with that group of friends. Then in 4th grade, I feel like his teacher took advantage of him. He's a very big rule follower, and it bothers him when others don't follow the rules.
Yeah.
And his teacher, her side of the story was she was talking to 2 girls in class and asking them, you know, could you keep an eye on the class when I'm off and let me know if they did anything wrong and so and such. And Austyn overheard the conversation and asked if he could help out. So now again, Austyn being that person that wouldn't care if it was me that he was tattling on to the police had I have done something wrong. And he went so far to take notes. So the teacher was absent one day and he was writing notes, and one of his good friends was sitting right next to him and said, hey, what are you doing over there? And he's like, oh, nothing. A couple minutes later, had to go to the bathroom, shoved the note in his desk. Now other 4th grade being nosy, pulls it out, shows the whole class and reads it to the whole class. So Austyn comes back to the classroom. So then he started getting snitches get stitches and things like that. The good thing about this town is they released for lunch. And because it was only 4 houses away, I allowed him to come home for lunch every day.
Yeah.
And I could feel something was wrong. He didn't want to go back in the afternoon. And he told me what happened. With me, it's like I jump on things quickly, almost overreact a little bit because I take it in the heat of the moment, especially when it comes to my children.
Well, we're emotional. And I think that that's really important is that when you're having a conversation with the school system, you almost have to take a step back. Because we all make the mistake of having an emotional conversation rather than a very deliberate and objective conversation. We all, when it comes to our children and we see something that's wrong, we want to be that advocate for our child. And oftentimes there's a lot of emotion in our delivery to the school system, and we're worried, and there is this panic that sets in, especially when you start to see that shift. So how did the school respond to...
I immediately reached out through email, and the school got back to me. He went back to school, and I explained to him during lunch, because he was very adamant on not wanting to go to school for the afternoon. And I said to him, Austyn, they're going to forget about it after lunch. You know, if it really comes down to you go back and you are really uncomfortable to be there, I said, call me. I will come and get you immediately. And he kind of had that comfort of knowing if it turned, he could call me. I would be there within 2 minutes, but at least to give it a turn. And he did.
So your statement of they'll forget about it over time is truthful. What we worry about in today, in the year 2020 and moving forward, is that oftentimes those scenarios are recorded. And then those videos are TikToked and edited. So one saving grace in this scenario where kids do forget about it is the fact that it wasn't recorded. Imagine the gravity of someone reading that piece of paper and someone sitting there with their iPhone and videotaping it.
So I was very upset with her for putting him in that situation to begin with. She didn't understand it from a parent's point. So that was kind of squashed. And he went to school and he came home. He goes, Mommy, you were right. He goes, nobody said anything about it in the afternoon.
Good. And that's,
so
again,
that made him feel better.
Part of it not being recorded. All right. All right, so that's 4th grade. So you had a little bit of frustration.
Then in 4th grade, there was a child who really started it all, and this is still the child that he can't face today.
Was there a piece of you that was very active in the school system because you were worried about how your children were going to be treated?
Absolutely.
That there is this idea that if I'm the PTA president, if I'm the treasurer, if I'm the secretary, if I'm active, if I run the fundraising, then it gives my kid almost a hall pass
Yes.
to not be one of the kids that's picked on.
Correct.
Okay.
So this one boy, he was very smart. He had gotten in so much trouble. He would, from the beginning of the year, have lunch detention, and he wouldn't see the lunchroom until the end of the year. At one point, this child was actually placed out in the hallway with his desk. And when I hear those things, you start to feel for that child.
You do, because at the end of the day, all of
Yes.
those systems, you know what they don't do? They don't work.
No.
Right?
Like being outside, you're segregating, you're angrying. Really
And
start
clearly
to
that's
feel-
not his currency. I always say if you want to solve problems with children,
Yeah.
you've got to learn their currency.
Yes.
Every child has different currency. I remember when Mallory when she was younger, getting her up and out the door dressed was a real struggle. Like she would just have these meltdowns. And I was like, why are you so upset? I finally learned that all she wanted to do was pick out her own clothes.
Okay.
And that might be zebra pants and a polka dotted shirt.
Yes.
And it might be snow pants in July.
Yes.
But as long as she was in charge of that. And what I learned very early is that Mallory wanted to be oftentimes in control.
Okay.
And that was the only thing she could be in control of,
Yes.
is picking out her own clothes.
Yes.
So there were times that we went to Target and she was wearing a tutu and she didn't even take ballet.
Yes.
But I knew that that was okay. So
Yes.
one of the mistakes, and I bring this up, is because oftentimes educators make the mistake of using the same currency for every child.
Right.
And every child's different.
Yes.
So clearly this was not his currency.
No. Austyn had mentioned the bicycle rack.
So talk to us about that, because Austyn did bring that up.
Yes.
And it sounds like he's been picked on a lot, but this particular incident.
Yeah,
so,
it really harmed him.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
I was at a bike rack. My friend was getting his bike. A boy actually came up, and I knew he was saying something mean. So I came in and said, "How about you stop?" He came up, and then like a lot of 8th graders surrounded me. One said, "How does your helmet fit your head?"
And what he didn't share was they actually said, how are you going to fit that helmet on your fat head?
Right.
Austyn is very sensitive when it comes to his weight and his height. That expressed in a way of 4th and 5th grade is fat.
Right.
It's not, hey, you're tall. It's not, hey, you have huge shoes.
And keep
your
in
feet
mind,
are
during
huge.
this time,
it's your
kids want to
fat.
be nothing but wallflowers.
Yes.
They just want to fit in.
Yep.
They just want to, everybody
he
needs
wants to
be,
sit in the back and just be
and not be seen,
left
not be
alone.
pointed out.
Correct.
Absolutely. So this is all normal behavior. And by the way, I say this because when parents are watching it, I want them to understand, and the normal behavior is important.
Yes.
Because people will often say, well, kids will be kids. And that's
Right.
true. So Austyn was called out for being large.
and in front of
In
a
front of
lot of
everybody.
kids. Yes. And he came home that afternoon. He threw his helmet in the shed. He threw his bike. Like I said, we live 4 houses away. He rode his bike. He chained it up. He was proud
Right.
that he could ride his bike. And from that day forward, he has never ridden it to school again.
So after the bike rack, I never wanted to wear a helmet, even though I needed to. To this day, I still don't want to wear a helmet or ride my bike, honestly.
Because he refused to wear the helmet. And we are
And it's that one
set
incident.
on him wearing a helmet.
Right.
Now he does. Being home, we'll take bike rides. He still fights us on wearing that helmet, but he knows he's not going if he doesn't have the helmet on.
Right.
So he does that with the mindset of he's not going to see
Right.
this boy or any other children that will say anything to him.
Right. And you brought it to the school's attention.
I did bring it to the school's attention. Before I even stated to the principal the child's name, he knew. So they brought Austyn down. I was in the office. They took all the notes of everything that has happened and everything that happened through the year.
We went to this office and they were talking about it with me, but it never helped.
This was right after you had come to the school.
If I remember correctly, you reached out to me because you were on the board or part of the PTA.
I was the president at
right.
that point.
And you reached out to us to have us come in.
And
Why?
I did that selfishly.
Okay, so tell me
Because
about it.
I saw signs in Austyn, and I was bullied as a child.
Yeah.
There's a Catholic school in town, Sacred Heart, and you had done a demonstration there.
Okay.
And my one best friend, her son went there. And when talking to her, she was like, you have to reach out to this woman. She, was amazing, and the presentation she puts on brings kids to tears and really leaves a mark on them. So immediately, the principal had wanted was something about cyber, something about bullying. Everything he was looking for was your foundation.
Awesome.
Everything fit that package. So we had spoken, and you usually do middle school 6 through 8. And since we had 4th and 5th graders,
That's right.
it was a little on the edge because it was an intense presentation.
Yep.
I had asked if we send permission slips home to these parents, the children that are approved, would you be comfortable with having them?
Yeah. I always say, listen, the talk about suicide, it's in your building.
Yes.
So if there is a school system out there that says, oh no, we don't talk about suicide, I always say, oh, it's in your building.
Yes.
Who's leading the conversation?
Right.
In kindergarten, they learn about Santa Claus, whether it's real or not, right?
Yeah.
There's someone that's going to spoil the whole Santa Claus
Right.
thing. And then, of course, in 1st and 2nd grade, they learn about where babies come from, and they learn all about
Correct.
sex. In 3rd grade, they're learning about self-harming.
Yes.
And it's sad that we live in that world,
Yes.
but there are plenty of hashtags on Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. There's tons of information and content out there. All you have to do is Google how to kill yourself
And it gives you
scroll down. There's
instructions, line by
examples on
line.
how to make a news.
Yes.
Like, I find it so disturbing
Yes.
that the access to adult content is so easy. So suicide's in our buildings.
Yes.
We've just decided as an organization that we think it's important that parents make the decision
Yes.
of when our content is appropriate. But I think that 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, they should definitely be
Yes.
hearing it because it lets them understand at a very young, impressionable age
Yes.
that what they're doing
Before they get to those
before they build the
thoughts.
bad habits, before the digital technology is in their hands. Let's get to them and let them understand the gravity of digital
Right.
responsibility. I'm glad that we were
Yeah.
able to come in and bring our presentation
Right.
to your school system.
And I had asked Austyn, were things bothering him? Because, like I said, he had began self-harming, and he just had his physical checkup. We had to lay him on the table, and I had to get on top of him and literally dead weight him just for them to give him his shots. So he is not a fan of needles, not a fan of blood. He would always be wearing long sleeves. And I would start to pick up on that and notice it. I'm like, Austyn, it's like 90 degrees outside.
And I
Why
want
are
you to
you
know-
wearing your jacket?
There's one mom out there that's listening to you.
Right.
Talk to her.
Yes.
Because there's another 12-year-old out there wearing
Yep.
long sleeves. So walk
the
us through
weather.
that, and you will help someone.
Yeah.
I know it's difficult, but tell us.
I would notice him running to the bathroom. I'm like, what are you doing? What's happening right now? And I would go in, and he would just have blood dripping down his arms. And I would notice when he got out of the shower, he would have scabs everywhere. And then once the scab came, he would pick out it again. And he would rip it open, and it would bleed. Because some kids like bug bites. They itch, and they itch, and they itch, and they accidentally rip it open, which is what I believed in the beginning what it was.
Of course.
And then
by
I
the way,
noticed
as
it more.
mothers, we make excuses.
Yes,
Because no
because you
one
don't
wants
want to
hear.
believe.
You don't want to believe. You don't want to hear. You
Yes.
don't want to think that your child would hurt themselves.
Right.
And as parents, and it is normal for kids to pick scabs and to
Yes.
do those things. And so that everything that you're doing is so normal. And I'm so glad because I want parents to hear this. So you notice.
So then I started noticing more and more, and I knew something was going on.
Every Sunday, I remember tomorrow is school, and sometimes I fake being sick.
We would be sitting watching TV, and I would, nudge my husband and tell him to look. And Austyn would literally be gazed. I don't even think he was watching the show. He would literally just be gazing and picking and picking and picking. And I would see the blood dripping, and he would just keep digging. It was an open hole in his arm.
Complete signs of anxiety.
Yes.
It makes me anxious. Sometimes I just go in my room, stay in my room.
And when I say scars, I mean everywhere.
And how old was he?
He
Was
was
this fourth grade still? Or?
11, and I started to notice it, I would say around January, and then it built and built and built. And then he would, again, with the long sleeves to hide it. And then you came in May. And at that point, he really opened up to me and had shared. I said to him, I said, Austyn, why do you scratch? Does it help you? Do you feel better? How do you feel when you do this? And he said, you know, Mommy, sometimes I don't even notice. He goes, but I have a feeling inside of me. And he goes, when I scratch, it makes me feel better. And it blew my mind.
Yeah.
Just to hear an 11-year-old child express how hurting themselves made them feel better. And at that point, you don't know what to do.
You feel helpless.
You do.
And you don't feel like the school is helping you.
Correct. I went to the teacher and I asked her,
You don't see it.
did you not notice?
Right.
And she told me no. I understand. I give the teachers the benefit of the doubt because in New Jersey schools, you've got 25 to 30 kids with one teacher.
Right.
So to pay attention to a child who is not a problem child, gets his work done, stays quiet and to himself, those are the kids that you feel as a teacher are okay and don't need you.
Right.
But those are the kids that you need to look at. Those are the kids that you really need to watch, the ones that don't express themselves.
Right.
Those are the children that
Well, I
they
think
should
that
be
the
looking
education
for.
component is not there for the teachers, and I always try to stick up for the teachers
Yeah.
because I think sometimes there's the teachers and then there's the administration,
Yes.
and that's literally the Hatfields and McCoys. You know, the
Right.
teachers are on the front line. They are bootstrap soldiers. They are the pawns in this game. They are the
Right.
ones going out battling the war, and then you've got the administrative team that's sitting in the offices.
Yes.
Not that it's easy to be an administrator, but I think that there is the division there, and so the teachers are in survival mode.
Yes.
They are focusing on with IEPs and 504s and children with behavioral issues.
Correct.
They do dominate and take up a big portion of it.
Yes.
And so when children like Austyn come along who are quiet wallflowers and often like Mallory who don't make a lot of noise, who don't do so, it is very easy to forget about them. There is a level of forgiveness for teachers that you want to question, like you are with them 8 hours a day. You didn't see that. On the other hand, the squeaky wheel gets the oil. When you brought these things to the school's attention, and I'm going to turn our conversation slightly over to HIB, because a lot of times this is what we have to work with. And I've said very openly, very publicly, I do not believe that this 87-page document is the right fit for our children.
Correct.
I do struggle with the fact that we are ignoring the mental health aspect of our kids.
Yes.
Did they ever offer to fill out a HIB?
Yes. They took all the notes. They did all the actions. He said in front of me, start the HIB paperwork.
Okay. They have 10 days to do from your initial complaint to do an
Yes.
investigation. Did they do an investigation? Or did they just make the assumption that everything that you said was truthful?
I believe they made the assumption. He's done these things to kids before.
Okay.
There's no reason for us not to believe it.
Teachers, if you're listening, I say this all the time. Just because you didn't see it, just because you didn't hear it, doesn't mean it's not happening. And
Right.
I don't have an answer for how do we correct or discipline behavior we can't see, but I can tell you that it's happening.
Right.
And they absolutely 100% lead up to bullying.
Yes.
They didn't see it, I don't think. And if they did, they didn't say anything.
Parents come at schools oftentimes with the idea that they're trying to solve the problem for them, that they're wanting to collaborate. You don't care how the behavior stops. You just want the behavior to stop. You see something going wrong, you're hearing what's going
Right.
on, and whether you're hearing it from a third party or not, you're hearing it.
Right.
So the school agreed to open
an
up
HIB
All right. And so for those
investigation.
people who are watching this and don't know, HIB stands for harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and it is our statute, it is our law that protects children and families from bullying.
Yes.
And it came out of after there was an incident down in Toms River, LW versus Toms River school system, and this is really where HIB came to be, and Austyn is in a protected category. And I talk about protected categories because it is race, color, religion, ancestry, natural origin, sexual orientation, gender, or other identifying characteristics, expression, mental, physical, sensory disability, or any other distinguishing characteristics. Because Austyn is a big kid.
Yes.
Just so that people understand how important it is, 85% of the time, students who are bullied, it is because of either their sexual orientation or their body image.
Yes.
I'm going to read this again. Appearance, the way a student looks, or his or her body size or sexual orientation are the 2 top reasons cited for frequent harassment. Again, this is the state of New Jersey's words, not ours.
Right.
So Austyn is already coming to the table with protection because he is in one of those categories. How did the HIB investigation go?
We had not gotten that 10-day notice. I reached out to the principal. He said to me it would be there any day. It was just, the end of the school year.
Right.
Come September, I still hadn't received anything.
So in that moment, your school system is in violation of the New Jersey statute HIB policy.
Yes.
Whether they want to be or not, whether it was deliberate or not, based on what you're saying today, they are now in violation of the HIB policy,
Yes.
which is pretty normal. Most school systems really don't understand the exact policy.
Right.
You have to have a law degree to be able to read this, interpret it, and that's so important.
Right.
Interpretation.
Right.
It's their interpretation. Oftentimes the buck stops at the principal, and if they decide that they want to do something about it, great. If they don't, then that's okay too.
Yeah.
And that's accepted. And from yours and mine perspective, that's not okay because it's now September and
Right.
Austyn is now having
Back in school with this child. So he did make sure that Austyn was not in the same class as this other child.
Okay.
However, it doesn't keep them separated.
No.
They see each other in the hallways. He had actually fallen down the stairs 3 times. It was all because this boy and his class were going up and his class was going down. So Austyn's focus was 100% on this child, not concentrating. Whereas this other child, Austyn is last year's news.
Right. With the
Nothing to
scars,
him.
the invisible
But the
wounds.
scars in Austyn, it still bothered him to the point where he couldn't even walk past this child and concentrate on anything else.
I see him in the hallways outside, and sometimes I just don't want to go by him or talking to him.
He's in September, and obviously he's suffering from some PTSD, and that's exactly what that is that's trauma. Every child has the potential to experience trauma in their life, and that's what that is.
Right.
So him, having this nervous feeling, that's nothing more than PTSD, and it does need to be treated. How did our presentation affect him?
It was a positive thing because he had finally found somebody that was like him.
I felt bad for her daughter, Mallory. I think it was a tragedy that happened.
Now, I'm sure there are kids like that in his school, but it's not what you share with your classmates and your friends. You're embarrassed of it. For me, it was difficult because this was the first time that he had honestly expressed the pain and the hurt and the bullying and the true reason why he would pick. I was bullied bad because I was overweight. And still to this day, I'll see on my Facebook page, friends in common, and it'll be friends from like high school. And I'll get that gut-wrenching feeling in my stomach that I had at 16, at now 36, with a family and kids. It never leaves you.
Right.
I knew that feeling, and I would go home and I would talk to my mom, and she would tell me, it'll all be fine. And that's how it was back in the day.
Right.
And that's the advice that our parents would give us. And that gave me such a bad taste in my mouth because she doesn't get it. And then it gives you no one to talk to.
Right.
And back then, there was no HIB. there was tattletaling, if you were to tell the teacher or the principal or something like that. It was just something, honestly, that you were meant to deal with, that you lived with. And it changed a lot for me in my life. Growing up, my confidence, I had no confidence. So I didn't want to say that to him. And because I didn't know the right words, I expressed to him how bullying was for me. What my mom would tell me would make me even more angry and more alone.
Just deal with it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about what those girls say.
And I had
Don't worry
said
about
to
what those
him,
people say.
I don't want to say that to you. Because then you're going to feel that pain and hatred and feel alone like I did. I said, so I need help. So I went to the school and I expressed what was going on. And there is this state therapy that the school can give you the phone number to for somebody to come to your home within 24 hours and interview your child and see if they're deemed harmful to themselves or others. So they came the next day, and Austyn, he was very closed off at that point. And the therapist asked him, have you ever thought about self-harming? And when he said yes, it literally shattered me to the core. I didn't know that it had gotten that bad. Like, I knew he was hurting, but for him to honestly feel,
To say it out loud.
to say it. And then she asked him, have you ever thought about running away? And he answered yes. And they said, from school? He answered yes. And they said, from home? And he answered yes. Now, I understood running away from school, but the running away from home, I didn't understand. I felt like we were a happy family, you know. We did everything together. We always kept our kids busy, whether it was camping, just going to another state and
many parents do
adventuring.
that. They think buying the cool sneakers, buying the cool sweatshirts, doing all those things, being the PTA mom, they think that all of those things will protect their children from hate. And I always say that hate is like a toxic gas. And no matter how great you are, it's invisible and you can't see it, and it makes its way into your home. So now you're sitting across from someone and your son has mentioned out loud that he's thought of hurting himself.
Like I said, I truly broke. But I had to stay strong, and I couldn't let my emotions show. So I wasn't able to cry. I wasn't able to gasp for air like I needed to so bad. I wasn't able to talk. And they finished up their session, and she found he needed immediate therapy. So they had in-home therapy for 6 weeks. And then he was approved for 6 more weeks through the state. And after that, it was outpatient therapy. So he still, to this day, sees a therapist once a week.
You know, when we started this mission, we said that we wanted to empower children, which is what we've done with Austyn. We wanted to make sure that we educated parents, and I think that that's exactly what the HIB is supposed to be, is that parents need to understand whether it's New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, or California, and everything in between. Your state, you need to know the anti-bullying laws within your state. You've got to know them before you need them. And then, of course, enrich schools, which is what we did with your school by bringing Mallory's story in. There was a psychiatrist that was treating children, and she wrote me a beautiful email sharing with me that a child had come to her expressing that they were hurting or that something was wrong, and they didn't really know what was wrong, and they couldn't put it into words, and they were having a difficult time articulating what's wrong. And so as they were talking, the child said, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I'm like Mallory. And all of a sudden, the therapist realized in that moment, that's good. You were unable able to say what's hurting, but we can fix that.
Right.
And so many children have come forward and they're not able to say that I'm anxious or that I have depression
They don't know
or that I'm
those
being bullied.
feelings. Yeah.
They don't know those words.
Right.
We have to remember that we're dealing with children that have 10, 11, 12, and 13-year-old and brains. They're just not developed.
Yes.
And oftentimes children, especially ones that are already struggling, they're going to have a more difficult time articulating what's going on.
Yes.
But once this child said, I don't know what's wrong, but I feel like Mallory, she realized that that was really a thing.
Yes.
And so we oftentimes will refer to it as like Mallory.
Yeah.
That you don't know what's wrong, and it could be the same, it could be different than what Mallory had. And again, Mallory was never diagnosed with any mental disorders. We didn't get that far.
Yeah.
She was bullied at school, which resulted to depression and anxiety. But let's talk about, there's verbal abuse, there's psychological abuse, there's physical abuse, and there's cyber abuse. All of these things. The effects of these bullying behaviors on students include serious psychological and behavioral effects manifested in low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, suicide, violence, and criminal behavior. Their words, not ours.
Right.
The state of New Jersey has put in writing that the effects of verbal, psychological, physical, and cyberbullying leads to low self-esteem, anxiety, depression, suicide, violence, and criminal behavior.
One extreme to the other.
Right. When children bully, I don't think that they are doing it because they want to do it. I think that hurt people hurt.
I always think that they've been bullied once, and now they just want to bully other kids to feel like what they felt like. But I think that's wrong, and you should do something right instead of bullying.
And I think that they both need help.
I absolutely agree.
Right? I think
and I've
that,
said that to Austyn.
Right.
I'm like, Austyn, these kids are maybe not as loved at home. Maybe their parents
maybe
are
their parents
bullies
are,
to them.
Maybe they're going
Maybe
through
their
divorce.
parents are bullies.
Maybe there's witnesses.
There's always something
Exactly.
that makes
Domestic
it
violence.
happen.
All of those things. But again, our children are not mature enough
Right.
to understand that. They only know what they know, and they only know what they experience at school.
Yes.
So when did Austyn come to you and say, I want to make bracelets?
Immediately after, pretty much, the assembly, he had seen the bracelets and was like, you know what, Mom, I want to start my own business.
We do a business called Bracelet Power. We make bracelet accessories like keychains, bracelets. We raise money for charities like Mallory's Army.
First, he started small, and he was just doing bracelets and selling them to his friends. And then he really started to get into it, and he just blossomed. And it was his happiest place. He was able to deliver them to people's houses and hand them to them. And the smile.
And it is something I really enjoy. I like seeing people smile.
And then people would comment on the page and be like, Austyn, you are a brilliant child. You are going to do great things with your life. And then with the bracelet business,
He has a Facebook page.
he does
that you manage.
It's off of my Facebook page.
Right.
So it's a group.
Good. So how many members do you have today?
402.
That's awesome.
So the beginning of this month, Austyn went live, and he said that he wants to hit his record of 500 likes.
Oh my gosh.
And that is his goal.
Has it helped
Support
him?
it. 100%.
When we say empower children and we talk about this is exactly what I wanted to do. And I really do believe that that's part of our mission as Mallory's Army and as a foundation, that we're a brand that kids can identify with. But I do want to mention Lynn Devereaux. And Lynn Devereaux has a foundation called the Page Hill Foundation. She's donated several $1,000s to Mallory's Army to help us in our mission. And her foundation does exactly that. It supports Children's Foundation. And this is a family foundation. She has found such a love for the bracelets. The bracelets are definitely Lynn's thing, and we are so grateful to Lynn for connecting us and bringing us together and being able to do it. And we will put a link up to our page to make sure during this show so that people can connect with you and be able to email you so that they can order if they are not on Facebook. And today Austyn surprised me with a butterfly that he made, and it says Mal in the middle, which is what we called her, and of course it's a butterfly.
the blue letters.
Everything about it is beautiful, but the most important part about it is that to me, this represents Austyn's healing.
Yes.
I just don't want people to go through what I've been through with bullying, and I just don't want them to have hard times like me. I just want them to have a normal life without bullying.
It's exactly what I hoped to accomplish. I always say that Mallory changed my life.
Yes.
And because Mallory's life and death changed our family so drastically, I too want to do that. We're going to share this. We are going to honor Mallory's passing. We are approaching the 3-year anniversary. I can't believe it's been 3 years. We're going to offer these butterflies through you so that we can continue to inspire Austyn to live his best life. And I think that Austyn's journey is an example of one incident at school or online
that can
totally change it. That it shows you that it's not one big thing that happens, it's these little tiny things that change the makeup of someone's life. And I truly believe that that's what happened to Mallory, is that she was bullied at school, she was mistreated, she didn't fit in, and she struggled with being able to articulate what was really going on. And as a mom, I knew she was hurting at school, but like you said, I didn't. How bad. And so I appreciate you being so open and honest and helping our viewers understand the gravity of bullying, but more importantly, that Austyn's story is not about him being bullied. Austyn's story is about #Bracelet Power, and I am so proud to be a part of that journey. So for more information about Mallory's Army and how to bring our program into your school system, you can visit mallorysarmy.org. You can also learn more about Austyn and his awesome bracelets through Bracelet Power. We will also share that information. We want to thank Lynn Devereaux and the Page Hill Foundation for sponsoring this special episode about bullying and how it really is about living a bracelet kind of life. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to sharing more stories and inspiring more children, educating more parents, enriching more school system, enhancing every community that we bring Mallory's Army to.